I'll start streaming. Just see what we got. Got the mic going. We got the mic. Got what we need. Looks like our frame rate's good. Let's check over here on the YouTubes. Make sure that that's up and running as well. Looks like yeah, got audio. Welcome to the live show. We always clip this together, tone it up a little bit at the end of the day. I'm gonna shut that YouTube. Although I probably shouldn't have done that. I just have to make sure that I'm still alive. I might have just killed the stream, which kind of sucks. In the past, that wouldn't have killed the stream, but never can be sure. So I'm going to look at this one more time just to make sure that it's live. Is it live still? Yeah. Still live, although it looks like it's struggling. So I'm just going to watch it for a second and make sure that that is okay. Couchbot's fired as well. So we can leave the station. We're just going to move YouTube down there so we don't have to look at I don't have to look at myself looking back at myself, because that gets kind of weird. But let's go ahead and get this underway. All right. Greetings, one and all. Chris Courtney here. New Pragmatics. Time for the feedback loop. So good to have you back. We've got a few students in here this morning. Maddie's in here. Ricardo's in here. Abby's in here. And so much of today's session is really just reviewing work that has seen its way through to fruition. I've quickly kind of glanced at everything because I have to pull the stuff up before we jump into it. And what I can say is overall, everybody finished out the thread. So it's one of those situations where everybody involved is ready to move on to the next thing, which is kind of rare, to be completely honest with you. Most of the time in the feedback loop, it's like, yeah, go back and circle back and do this thing. But sometimes, especially during research, you're gathering research so that you can move on to the next piece or activity that you need to do, which is the case for Ricardo. So I guess we should maybe just start with Ricardo. So I'm going to go ahead and transition over and share my screen. And that's not Ricardo, that is Abby. Ricardo's down here. And Ricardo has a number of interviews that he's performed. And as you can see, he's turned those in. I believe that today is the 17th. Today is the 17th. Look at that. So Ricardo's turned in a number of interviews that have been performed. He used Otter, which is, again, if you're in the middle of doing user interviews, you want to be really focused in on the person that you're interviewing, not constantly jotting notes. Otter is a really great way to just record it, let Otter transcribe it for you, and then you can circle back and do your note updating later. And Ricardo has done a pretty good job. He's laid out kind of the questions that he asked during the interview. Otter actually does a pretty good job. It's trying to show you the different people who are talking here as you go through. And what I do know is from the questions, I can kind of tell when Ricardo is talking, because I can look at the questions up here and come down and so yeah, walk me through your typical day. That's gotta be Ricardo. This is the participant he's talking to. And this is great, Ricardo. This is great. I'm glad that you were able to take the time to interview those people. But this is really fodder for affinity diagramming, which is where we make a billion post-its, and then we begin finding the common thread between them, so that we can see, what's the real story here. After you've talked to a parent, you talk to a student, you've talked to a teacher, is it becoming clear that there's a theme that is impacting all of them, or is it really just like one side's okay, but the other two are kind of in a funk? We're trying to figure out where the problem is, rather than saying, oh, we're coming in blind to this thing, saying, yes, we're going to build something. And Luigi was talking to me about this yesterday, about this concept of, my something he's working on. It felt like they had a solution looking for a problem. You don't want to ever feel like you've got the solution and you're searching for the problem. All right? That's the wrong order to work in. So doing user interviews is really helpful to help identify, okay, which direction should I be building in? And affinity diagrams helps you sort out all this. You talk to 3 different people, you've got a bunch of information in here. I'm just kind of scrolling through, and you've got this times 3. There's a lot of information there that you need to parse out, and that's what we're going to be doing in the affinity diagram. So the great news is there's really no wrong way to do this, provided that you actually did the interview, which I can see that you did. That gives us the fodder to begin working with for the affinity diagram. But you can't do the affinity diagram without the user interviews. So just understand that, like, two-sided coin, one side can't be completed without the other, but there's not a lot to do with the user interviews aside from were they conducted? Here they clearly were, and now you move on to the next phase. From there, Maddie, let's go a completely different direction. Maddie has done a really excellent job tackling the brick house exercise, and without focusing too much on the solution, which there's while there's a bunch of different ways to get to the solution, the one thing I will say is determining whether or not you're headed on the right path is often more important than actually like the placement of the classes and whatnot. Now there are a couple of things that aren't necessary. So this grid left, you don't need to there's no class of div in the CSS down here below. So that's one thing I'd point out. Like, grid left div is simply saying that when a class of grid left is applied, all divs that follow should have a height of 1000, or not 1000, but of 100. If I deleted that away, you can see that it begins to really mess with that. So I really do need that child element to target, and the reason it's a child element is it's inside of this grid left. So, but if I remove grid left, if I remove div from there, nothing's going to happen here. And why does nothing happen? Well, because the CSS was saying for any parent element that has grid left attached to it as a class, find me the other divs that are inside of that, which would be these two, and then make them 100 pixels tall and make them green. And obviously, when you apply a class of light to that, it makes it the lighter green. And I deleted that away, and now it'll be the darker green. So the rest of that was the only spot that I saw where you kind of got off track. Otherwise, this is perfectly well done. And I do really appreciate the fact that you went through and commented. You added a lot of comments so you could see exactly what you were doing. For those of you that aren't sure how to comment, it's simply command. Oh no! Oh, that was weird. What happened? Yeah, it's command / I don't know what I hit just a second ago, but it made everything go away. But that notes it out, comments it out, that brings it back. So command / and off you go. But Maddie, this is well done. Only that one little adjustment. Head straight on into box models. All right, and then Abby. Abby's here with her competitor matrix, and the interesting thing here is I'm really interested in the follow through down below or out here. And what I want to do is I want to grab all of these, and I'm just going to say format text wrap. That way we can just kind of see them. You obviously link to your heuristics, which is great. So, looking at your I'm wanting to look at your summaries here. Meal service that delivered fresh, ready meals each week. Website provided clear instructions on where the user should go and how to use it. Premise of meals delivery service. Sent as needed, and you selected how much you want. Website was easy to use, but could use. Website easy to use, but could use and for navigating. So not that's a little garbled, but these are notes for you, not for necessarily anybody else. So long as you understand what you meant there, that's fine. Grocery service with deli meals and sides. That's really interesting. Who was this? Fresh Direct. Okay. That was the one that felt like it was like 10 the site felt like it was 10 years old. Subscription based on delivery timing, not the quantity of meals. That's also interesting. Website busy with information, things to buy. So that was the site that was really overwhelming, had so many options. They could really benefit from streamlining it to like what is, getting it to the point of what's the purpose of you being here, customer. Because right now it just feels like they're trying to do everything. Questions for future consideration: pricing of meals, meal quantity. So I'm guessing that it wasn't clear how much this was or how many you got. Based on the summary and the future questions. How many meals per week will be provided? That must not be answered there. Order in-person option since there is a physical location, question mark. What incentives to get customers, get them to purchase again? Okay. And what subscription options will be provided to customers here? So that's that tells me that there's a few holes in these sites. If those are your questions for these sites, that's pretty interesting. And this is really where, and you brought up a great question, is like, because with, now we're moving into competitor testing. Competitor testing is meant to give you a gauge of whether you're seeing your competitors the same way that potential customers are seeing your competitors. And to do that, you need to find some of the potential customers who are likely customers of these services already, and that's where the survey comes in. Obviously, that was a little out of order, so we did adjust that. So thank you again for bringing that to light. But overall, you've done the research. Thistle, Kitch Fix, Fresh Direct. Those are going to be the ones that you're going to be testing with real users. The sites now. The question is, when you put them in front of potential customers, do they have the same reaction to those sites? Do they see the same things in those sites that you saw? Do they find them to be as well designed or as easy to use as you did? Or do they find them to be confusing? Do they find them to be unclear of, what should I be doing here? Those are the things that you're trying to see now. The competitor testing allows you to see your competitor sites through another set of eyes, and that's always what we're trying to do when we get into user interviews, which is where Cardo is, and competitor testing, which is where you are. You're trying to get somebody else's perspective because, frankly, we may have the worst eyes possible for this unless we're unless we are spending our time watching somebody else, which goes right back to the power of observation. So rather than ask somebody how they feel, you watch them and you talk to them and you listen to them. So I really do feel like you're headed in the right direction. Thank you for again bringing up the fact that surveys was out of order. And yeah, that's pretty much it. The one thing I wanted to mention is, and somebody brought this up earlier. So if we go over here to CSS selectors, I love working with CodePen. I just absolutely love it. But one thing that you might not realize when you're dabbling inside of CodePen is that you can actually go through and see the HTML. You can see the CSS. You can actually hide this result if you want to, so that you can see the HTML. Sometimes there'll be far more HTML than this to work with. So just understand that these views can be turned on and off. And also, this stuff is typically pretty editable. So if I came in and I said red, I can update the code right here. That you don't have to necessarily go over the CodePen to work with it there. Although I frankly I love working with CodePen, no problem there. See that? Oh, that's margin top. Got it. So as you change that, it pushes it down. There you go. So overall, that's about it for this edition of the feedback loop. Just wanted to walk you through a little bit on the CodePen side. I want to thank Abby, Maddie, and Ricardo for sending their work in. And I'm going to switch my screen back. And I'm going to wrap this edition up. If you have questions, you know where to find me. Come over here and hop into Discord, ask questions there. I'm meeting with so many of you later today, so I will see you soon. And for everybody else, I'll see you again tomorrow right here for the feedback loop. Take care.